Let's see if that helps. Technology isn't always your friend, right? No sound? No. We just figure. Hang on a second here. Okay, let's see if that helps. Okay, technology isn't always your friend, right? See, that is the advantage of starting a few minutes before the scheduled time, because then you can at least try to get hold on your things right now. And Henrik says he gives me thumb up, so that means that, yeah. So what I was about to say is that I said to Henrik and I said to my wife yesterday that doing 5 times 3 hours a day is actually a quite ambitious project. And I know that I'm not talking all the time, but I'm listening to everybody and trying to have relevant questions in your communication with people. So yeah, that is of course something that we have to learn from. I think also I forgot that from Monday was holiday, so there was a lot of viewers, and then probably a lot of people started back to work, so there was a fewer people yesterday, and so 140 people yesterday and 170 people the day before. And so let's see where it takes it today, right? We have some great sessions today. I'm going to talk about selling in a second, and I can see that people that knows about sales, they will be very disappointed. I don't think I can learn old docs so many tricks, but I will try to do my best anyway. Then we have a cancellation, unfortunately. The presenter from HiCon, who was supposed to be on air after my session here, got sick, or there were some issues that I can't talk about, but basically they had to cancel yesterday. Unfortunately, Francois Martin from Bobst, he took the opportunity to take a last-minute deep breath and dig into the presentation and start with it, and is ready to present things today. Then we have Scott and Harm from TechNow. I look very much forward to that presentation. And finally, we have Dr. Gibson from Infikos to talk about Web2Print. So I think it will be a quite interesting day, and I hope you will enjoy it. And as usual, share some questions. No sound again? That is that's too bad. Or maybe it's just Henrik. Hang on a second here. So I think it will be a quite interesting day. I'm just watching the live stream right now. So share some questions. No sound again. Henrik, he has no sound. We have sound. Let's take the presentation ahead and see where it takes us, and I hopefully it works. So first, I will just click on the presentation screen here, and then I will share this little beauty here that I did. So I think that one of the ever recurring questions you always have is obviously sales. Everything is about sales. When I used to be a sales manager in a printing company some years ago, it was a little bit of a strange situation, because maybe you recognize this. Everybody found that their department was the most important department. So pre-press, they thought they were their most important department, and the print operation was the most important thing. And that kind of lead to where our sales, because I mean basically all of us lives from our customers. So obviously it's extremely important that we have everything that we do in our companies are customer centric and turned around the customers. I would like to share an example how bad it could be. I used to work in a printing company 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I was a relatively young, at least 15 years younger salesperson. And the way it worked in that printing company was basically that if you've been out with a customer and you wanted to give the customer a quote, you came with the RFQ, put it to the estimators table, and then the estimators were supposed to give you a price within reasonable time. And you can, of course, always discuss with yourself what is a reasonable price or time, sorry. I was still relatively young and didn't work so long time with that printing company. So after the first day, I was just like, okay, maybe it takes a day. Then after 3 days, I still didn't get any response. And after 4 days, I was like, hey, Mr. Estimator, can you please tell me when I will get the estimate from you so I can go and talk to my customer about this? And he said, you know, Morten, you placed the RFQ in the wrong colored Shatec. And if you can't figure out to put it in the green Shatec and just of placing it in a white Shatec, then I can't do my job. So you have to learn to adapt to the structures, otherwise we can't do it. And that has been an example for me on how bad things can go in a printing company, and how bad things can be in relation to understanding the importance of what is important in a company, right? So that is what have inspired me always to talk about sales. And in this slide, you can see that I tried to put up like sales is not the same as selling. I think a lot of people that work in printing companies, they mix these two things, because if you are, let's say that you are an account manager and you get a call from a customer placing an order with you, that is sales. That is not selling, because essentially you have to understand there is like a process behind it. We'll talk about that in a second. But we have like two types of customers. There are the customers that knows that they have a defined need. Let's say that if you are a magazine publisher, you know you need a magazine. So if you are in a procurement process with a printing company, you will tell exactly what you need, and that when your customer know this, he or she will most likely also know the value of what you're offering. And that can lead to lower margins because it's a high competitive market. So that is something that you have to have in mind. Secondly, the other type of customer are the ones that have an undefined need. Let's say that you go and ask a customer, I'm selling print and I would like to sell this to you. And he said, no, we don't use print. We have an inkjet printer, desktop printer sitting here, and we don't need a professional service. Then you of course have to spend time with that customer in advance to explain and educate them why your value proposition and your product is better, maybe not in a quality sense, but better in a sense of what it can do for your customers. So it's always about what can your product do for your customer. And if we talk print, it is often that we forget that whether it's printed digital or printed in offset, or it's with a specific types of finishing or things like that, doesn't necessarily play such a big role for your customer. What plays a role in what it does for your customer? Does it lead to more sales? Does it lead to better marketing? Does it lead to something else that is a little bit more undefined? Maybe you have to talk to your customer before you really understand that part of it, right? And to give an example, I found this picture. You can see it's from Hunkler, and you can see that there's an HP T-Series printer on this picture. I just want to also reach out to Hunkler because they are sponsoring this event. So thank you very much. So if you have this type of printer, you might want this kind of binding equipment. So that is like there's a relation between in what position in the market you are and what equipment you have, or what product you already have and what you want to achieve. And if you have this the T-Series printer, you might be in market for some kind of binding equipment from Hunkler. If you have another HP printer like this one, you are not in the market for any of the products and services that Hunkler have. And that is of course, everybody understand that if you have this type of printer, you may not be the customer you want at all. But let's say that you have this type of printer in a small business where they could have a bigger machine, or they could have maybe value of outsourcing some of the print. You have to explain that process and that service before you get to what you can sell them, because otherwise they will say, this is a great printer, it print out beautiful paper, and that is sufficient to what we do, right? So this is just an example that you can't sell to somebody who don't have a need for it, and then you have to have that into the considerations that you're doing it. I said that it's also about the understanding of the difference between sales and selling. If you start with the sales, sales is about numbers. It's basically reaching your budgets. It's about reaching your targets. It's about something that is more like, I would say, it's not easy, of course, but I would say that is way more about reaching an objective that you have hopefully agreed with your sales manager or your boss or yourself, and you have put in some numbers that you want to do that to you know, justify your salary, justify your bonuses, justify your incentives, and all these kind of things. Really important to understand that sales is about the numbers, in my opinion, and selling is about the process. So if you have like a sales budget where you need to sell for €1 million, the selling and the process about that is how you will achieve that €1 million turnover. So that is like the differentiation when you think of that, because if you think of sales and selling as the same, I think you can end up in a trap, because how should you achieve your sales if you don't know how to get there? So that is why I try to differentiate these two things. Everybody wants to sell more if they can, and that has a lot to do with psychology. So when you want to sell more, you have to understand your customers, you have to understand what they need, and you have to understand how you get to that confident level with your customer. I think that often we are so focused on selling what we have instead of starting listening to what the customer really want. Another example, I used to work in a design agency a few hundred kilometers away from where I live now, and design agents at that time anyway was I wouldn't say an easy target, but it was a target for salespeople from printing companies, because it was a work generating place business, of course. And we were approached by a Danish printing company asking to come and show us what they were able to do. And the first thing that struck me when the young guy came on board, it was like he said, "I've been working for this printing company for only a week." Okay, so that is like one thing that is something that you have to put into to the equation. Then he had like a cake, and he was just starting. You put it on a table, starting cutting in slices and served to us. And I mean, I didn't know him. I didn't know that guy, right? So that was, to be honest, a little bit odd, right? Then the next thing was he started to talk about how fast the Komodo machine was. He didn't talk anything about what they could do for us. They just started to talk about the equipment, to talk about all the things that, of course, also has some level of importance to it. But he never listened to what we said. And then you came to the products and services, and I said, so okay, why should I choose to work with you? And he was like, yeah, we are the cheapest printing company in Denmark. And I was just like, yeah, but that is crazy, because I didn't even ask for the cheapest printing company. I asked maybe for the best printing company, or the ones that understand our needs the most. But since you asked for being the cheapest printing company, I can give you some RFQs based on something that we have already produced, so we can compare the things. And all the prices that he gave me was essentially way higher than anything else. So I'm sorry, it was just, I have turned off my phone and it keeps ringing anyway. And I think it's from the UK, so it might be our next guest that is trying to figure out how to get on board here. So I will just ask Henrik to give a ring here on the first one. Sorry for that. So I hope you get my point, that basically when you start selling on first of all, you don't have a relationship. Secondly, you end up in a situation where you talk about equipment and where you talk about capabilities, and then you end up saying that you're the cheapest in the market, and then you end up being not the cheapest in the market. I think that you have more or less done everything wrong that you could do in that sales process. And to be honest, it was a shame, because after we didn't start working with them, but after we started working on INKISH, I got to know the company from a different angle, and it was actually, or is actually, one of the best printing companies in Denmark when it comes to quality and service and all the things that really matters sometimes to some products, right? So an example. The ever recurring question is, of course, what do customers really want? I don't know if you've seen that, but we have a channel on INKISH TV called the Print Champion channel with Matthew Parker. And he used to be a buyer for a publishing company in the UK. And he has written books and do lessons about customer needs. And he gave an example, and then I reviewed one of his books. And he gave an example that, you know, he sent out RFQs to a lot of different printing companies, and all the printing companies more or less went back to him with focus on prices and applications. And if you can't make something that differentiates you, then you end up in a situation that you will just be picked because of price. And he said he might even be willing to pay more for a better service, or for a service where the customer basically listened to the need that was defined by the customer, right? So let's look at what is they want. They want things to be easy, competitive, latest technology, convenience, recognition, success, everything, TCO. Oh, that was fast, right? And the thing is that if you look at that, is that something that we can sell? And to quote a famous American, yes, we can, because essentially, one of the things that I didn't mention in this thing when it comes to, for example, if you sell print, is the product. If we talk about vendors, I'm not talking about the products either. I'm talking about all the things that justifies the investments we do. So let's say that if you look at the latest technology, that is of course relevant to vendors, because they, I think it's very unlikely that they have products where they go and say, see, this is the oldest technology we have. Wouldn't you like to have that? It's very unlikely, right? TCO, total cost of ownership, of course, makes a lot of sense, because that is something that everybody's looking into. But the big question is, can you calculate all the things into total cost of ownership? Because you have maybe the financing, you maybe have the operation cost, you may have things, but the thing that you may not know is the utilization of it. And if we refer back to our sessions on Monday, where Henrik was giving examples on how much discounts influences your profitability. If you look at also Monday, we had a session with Kit and Casper from Printbeats talking about how you calculate prices. TCO may not be as easy as it sounds, but that is still like a buzzword that all of us would really like to have, right? Then I write everything. Yeah, everybody wants everything, right? They want recognition, convenience, success, competitive advantage, the things to be easy. And the reason why I believe we can sell this is if we turn back to a couple of slides where I say that is about psychology. This is if we understand the customer's needs, and this could be some of the examples. I'm not saying that this is conclusive, I'm just saying that this could be some of the things that is important to your customers. You have to figure out, okay, how can we sell things in a way where we kind of stress to the customer the advantages and the thing they really want. If we look at what vendors want, it is not it's not too bad either, because basically you want success. But when we dig a little bit beyond that, a little bit kind of buzzword, it is the same thing, because we want to be successful. We want to deliver. I don't know about you, but every time I have done a sale, we don't have a bell. We should maybe have one, but in some of the printing companies I used to work in, we have like the bell where ringing so everybody can hear that you have sold something, because sales equals success. But sales also equals justification of our work. Often sales also pays a lot of salaries to some of your colleagues, right? The sales also justify development of new service and products. So all the things that are turned around. And that is why when I started this presentation, I said that printing companies who don't understand that the customers are the most important thing in their business, and then have these crazy thing, as I said, about this estimator that thought that he was the most important thing in the printing company. That is simply wrong, right? So I think that is important to remember. And then you can say, okay, how to sell more? In these days, I just read in Print Week yesterday that both Bobst and Xerox has canceled their Drupa participation next year. I think that must be quite tough for Drupa to have cancellation of those sizes, because it's of course something that is influencing the trade show. And the reason why I mention this is because the reason why you go to a trade show is not only to meet friends and to show off, it's also to get the leads. And if you can figure out how to get leads that are better and you have the right go-to mentality, then I think you have a very good opportunity of becoming a market leader. You have a very good opportunity of getting into a situation where you can help your customer to achieve the success that is the key element for his way of doing things, right? One of the ever recurring questions I get, and I know a lot of other people get as well, is can we sell during the COVID-19? And I know some people think we can't, but yes, we can again, and we should. Because if we look at what we are selling right now, we are selling, basically we are selling, maybe not products, but then we are selling security. Because if you don't sell and your customers don't sell, then we end up in a situation that nobody has any money. That means that we have to lay off people. That means that there's less marketing. That means that we push the recession in a way that is not good. Of course, we can't force anybody to buy anything, and believe me, INKISH has really suffered a lot from the COVID-19 and from the cancellation or the postponement of trade shows. But it has also given us opportunities. Like, I don't think we would have ever done a webinar like we have done this Learn With Us sessions over the past week, or in the past 3 weeks before, all these wonderful or the Skype interviews that gave us a lot of opportunities to get to know new people. I think a lot of people have been sitting in their homes listening to some of the things that we have talked to people about. And in this session here, this is the first time we have an opportunity to both monetize, since we are sponsored by the vendors here. Not a very high amount of money, because maybe that's not the time. But I think that the really big advantage is that we build relations with the vendors, we build relations with our viewers, we build relations with the industry, and that is what you can sell. You can make sure. Yesterday, Mark Hinder from Rico Europe, he gave a presentation about, or was it the day before? Sorry, it was the day before. No, I can't see, the days are just floating. I can't remember right now. But he gave a presentation about investment strategies, how you should look into the market and how important it is to generate cash and revenue. And I think that what Rico does, and probably other vendors do as well, is that if we can help each other, support each other in the process of getting closer to our customers, understand their needs, supply them what we can supply them with, maybe not a printing machine, but then consultancy or maybe something else that can lead everybody through the crisis. I think we have a good opportunity, and of course we should sell. This may not be 100% aligned with my my headline of today, but of course selling cycles are important. The selling cycle is a tool that you use for understanding the process of from you have a prospect to you have your first interaction with a customer, to you have a proposal, to you have all these things, right? And these things are obviously extremely important in your own management. There is a lot of different ways of looking into these. So to be honest, that is something that you should work on yourself. But I came up with an idea a couple of years ago, and I just want to show it to you, share it with you. See, if you look at this, I gave an example here where you have, you can see that you have the prospects, contact, qualified lead, need, offer, clarification, close, sales, produce, deliver, referrals. That is a typical selling cycle. It can have more milestones, it can have fewer milestones. That is not so important. The important thing is here to understand that if you look at from contact to qualify a lead, and then on top of that I have put in a title of marketing. Isn't that just, I mean, isn't marketing the management thing that you have to do here, because if you want to have more qualified leads, you need to have better marketing. If you qualify the lead and you want to express or get the customers to express their need for it, isn't that like a human resource job to educate staff to have the right understanding on how to ask questions? And from the offer to the clarification, that is about knowledge. And in my opinion, this is a way of trying to understand that if we have sales as the most dominant part of all companies that we work with, and we put all the steps and the milestones, first of all, we get an idea about the time and the value of the selling cycle. But even more important is that we also get a tool where we can see that, okay, we need more marketing, we need less marketing, we need better marketing. So these kind of elements will help you and help your company of identifying the needs in ways to get what you need, basically, right? So the conclusion here is essentially that, of course, you should just sell some more. And I appreciate that you spent some time with us here in Learn With Us session. When we started this one, it was not the intention that I should do so many of the presentations, but I hope you find them useful anyway. I have always enjoyed sharing my ideas. I don't know how good I am at it, but maybe you can throw in through a few comments on the chat. Maybe you can ask some questions if you have further things. And finally, before the Q&A, I just want to thank Hunkler very much for sponsoring, be part of our sponsoring of Learn With Us. These people don't always have the time to participate on their own, but having the support from the industry like Hunkler is tremendously important for us. So thank you very much. And I think we are about ready to have some questions, if you don't mind or if you like. So thank you very much. No questions so far. Let's see if we get a few questions. Maybe Henrik has some questions, because he's my annoying colleague. No, he's not. I'm just kidding. By the way, I just want to thank also, we got a lot of feedback from having positive feedback from having the webinars the way we do it, because we try to be very down to earth, and we don't try to be so formal. We want this to be joyful, and we want it to be very human to human kind of thing, which is very, very difficult when you are in a situation like talking to a screen. Right now I'm looking at myself on the screen, and I would love to see you guys instead, because that is way more fun. And that is, of course, something that we will try to evaluate, whether this platform is better than some of the others in the market, or how you do things. So, but let me hear if anybody has any questions. Of course, Henrik had a question. So his question is, how do we argue value? I think that the first and most important thing about value is that it is not that's not like a fact. That is like something that is really different from person to person, from company to company. So for some companies, the only value is the lowest price, fastest delivery, unfair, everything. Henrik actually told me a story, because he used to have his own company, and there was one of the customers, they wanted to buy something from him, but they wanted a discount, and he couldn't give them a discount unless he changed on the service levels. And obviously, you know, it's always like Moore's law, because when he gave the discounts and removed some of the service levels in the agreement, of course, these service levels were needed at some point. And that is like an example that if you always sell on price, I think that sometimes you will, or always buy on price, you will end up having sometimes at least, where your cheap purchase was actually very costly to you. So the value, or how you argue value, is very different. In my opinion, it's like when we started INKISH, everybody was like, well, your films are long, and everybody was like, social media needs to be short, and I was just like, I don't care. If you look at some of the network channels out there, like BBC, like CNN, like some of the bigger channels, they don't care. They just produce and deliver the content that is needed, and then people can get in and out to it when they see that. When I see a printed piece where I really find that it is done great, I don't trash it. I save it. So the shelf life on nice products have a way longer shelf life than on ugly, badly produced things. We try to do everything with the highest level of values. And I think also that if you look at some of the equipment sold out there, it may not be so important whether the price tag is 1 million or 1.1 million. But when the day is over, it's about what value it can produce for the customers as well. When it comes to print, I think that it is important that salespeople in print talk to the customers what they want to achieve. And the question is like, do you want to have do you think that your business cards represents the values of your company? And if they got like no bad things about Vistaprint's free offerings with a Vistaprint logo on the backside, but I'm just saying that if you're a business and the business card might be the only thing that you have left when you leave the company or your prospects, I think you should invest a lot of money in that business card, because that business card represents all the values of the company. So I hope that answers a little bit on how I see it anyway. Okay, I think this is pretty much what we have to talk about for today. I hope you could use my presentation for something, and I can tell you that we have now, very soon in 15 minutes, we have Francois Martin from Bobst. I have never met him, so I look very much forward to talk to him first of all, and I also look very much forward to his presentation. The presentation is about packaging trends and challenges. And I think that maybe he will touch not just upon the challenges that we see due to the COVID-19, but maybe you will also hear about some of the trends and challenges in relation to more generic and general issues, which is, I think, that could be interesting to listen to. So stay put for another 14 minutes and then look forward to getting to the next session. So thank you for your time here. See, I look very much forward to welcome my next guest. That is Francois Martin from Bobst. So welcome to our Learn With Us session here.
Hello, hello.
You can turn on your webcam if you click on the little blue one next to the microphone in the top, if you like. Or are you very secret?
No, hello, I did not saw it. Hello, hello.
How are you, Francois?
No, doing well. Thank you very much. Good morning to you. And do you want me to keep my headset, or I can go?
That's
Doesn't
fine.
matter.
No,
Okay.
no, I think it's good to have a good sound so we can hear what you're saying. I think that you have, first of all, I want to appreciate a lot that you could step on so rapidly because of yesterday, HiCon, they got like sickness in there with the person that was going to present, so they had to cancel. So we go from one finishing device to another finishing device, plus, because you do a lot of more things, of course, right?
Yeah. So at Bobst, packaging is what we have been doing for 130 years, and we hope to continue for the same amount of years.
I'm sure about that. And you know, I can't help think that it was some kind of blast in print week yesterday when Bobst announced that you are not part of the next Drupa. It must have been a very hard decision for you guys.
Yeah, correct. In fact, Bobst was at the first Drupa in 1951.
Really?
And yes. We were there, and we sold 49 machines at that time.
At the first Drupa?
Yes. And
okay.
But it was the time where trade shows were the only way to see machines. So 70 years after, the world is changing, and
yes.
The coronavirus has really accelerated decisions. And we knew already in 2020, we were guessing that Drupa 2020 would be the last big Drupa. That was the existing thinking. At least when I was working at HP, we said that. Working for Bobst now for 2 years, I think we said it as well. The challenge with trade shows is you need to carry a lot of equipment. You need to send a lot of employees. It's very costly. And then you have a very big environmental impact.
Yes.
Because you have to carry, if you look at Drupa, I don't know the exact numbers, but I can guess that we are talking about 100,000 tons of equipment that is shipped to Düsseldorf. Yeah. Some of it is destroyed, all the stand design and all these things. So the environmental impact is significant. But in addition to that, and this is probably the most important one, we have a lot of customers. They are between 30 and 40. They are very agile. They know how to work with modern technologies, like what you do today. It feels like you are in front of me.
And, you are in front of me as well, Francois.
and these customers are telling us, I don't mind to come to Drupa, but it is, we need to find other means to access information. We need to get to see your machines. We need to talk to you without having to travel 1,000 kilometers.
Yes.
So there was the new generation was still okay to go to Drupa, but they were asking us to find other ways. And what we are going to do, we are going to invest more in our demo centers that we call now smart factories. We will make customer experience more relevant, and then we will start to virtualize and broadcast through the internet products. So we don't know yet exactly how it will be done, but we have started for label printing. You can call me Monday and you can say, hey, Francois, I want to see your new digital label press, and I will make a demo just for you. And the streaming quality is very good. And then if you really like it, then you will have to come. At a certain moment, coming face-to-face will be required. But so you don't have to fly to Label Expo.
Yeah. So that basically also means that when you look at the qualification process of leads, for both your sake and for the customer's sake, is very good, because instead of traveling, spending a lot of time on going forth and back, you can kind of tick off the list before you actually meet, right? So you can say, now we are here. This is really something that has a value, right?
Exactly. Of course, at trade shows, you had the opportunity to see Bobst in the morning, HP in the afternoon, Zycon later, Heidelberg later. You could see more in one day. I agree.
Yeah.
You could also have, let's say, you could have a drink with someone, you can have a dinner. But in 2021, with the coronavirus, it's going to be very
limited.
Yeah, limited
Yeah.
distanciation and this and that. So at the end, we said, hey, we are going to live in a new world. We need to make bold decisions. And you cannot say, I want to change, and you don't change.
No,
that's the thing. So it was not an easy decision, but we believe that it is the right decision.
Yeah, I can tell you that I wrote an article on INKISH News about your decision and Xerox's decision about the value of trade show this morning on INKISH News. So I have already commented on things, and I think that printers have for years been under pressure to change because the market is changing. Media has to change because the need for media are changing. Vendors are changing. And of course, also organizers of events needs to change because the time is changing, not just because of the corona, but in general, our societies are changing. So I think it's a very natural development. And I think that sometimes you can always speculate about when is the right time to do things. But I think that with COVID-19, I don't know if that was part of your equation too, but I think a lot of vendors have been like, if you have like these 4 years development cycles and you present your latest thing at a trade show like Drupa, and now it's canceled or postponed, that doesn't give you an opportunity to say that we just wait for a year. And you have to put things to market, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what you said is one of the element of the decision. We could not say, oh, let's put everything in the fridge and then we open it again in a year, because we had everything scheduled for Drupa 2020. That was the plan. But now that it is postponed, then it makes things more complicated and we cannot wait. And then in addition, assuming you go to Drupa 2021, then you have to go again in Drupa 2024. But then it's kind of, wow, we are not inventing new machines so quickly.
No. And if you do, and if you invent a machine that needs to go to market tomorrow, then you will have to deliver it tomorrow. You can't wait 3 years for that, right? So that is like a new way of thinking. Yeah.
But Drupa, it was a good trade show. It was really the clock of the industry every 4 years and this and that. But things are changing, and the coronavirus has really accelerated many decisions. And if you look at the automotive industry, they are also canceling their big trade shows. And the watch industry, I am living in Switzerland, where watches are very important. So you can see one over here.
Oh, that's a nice watch, yeah.
And so the trade shows for watches also have been canceled. And this is just the beginning. And I am personally, I love Drupa. It was nice to be there 11 days with industry friends. We had nice dinners, good beers, and so on. But if I am now thinking for my kids, I have 3 children. They are pretty big. 2 are doctors and 1 is pharmacist. But they are going to suffer from the environment, the climate change. The climate change is a big deal. If you would look outside here in Switzerland, we are 2 months ahead of schedule.
Okay.
So in some part of France where my family is living, it looks like Morocco.
Okay.
I'm not joking. It's so hot in summer. We are reaching 40 degrees. So the climate change is a major burden for the entire society. And if we don't accept to reduce the environmental pain and climate change, we need to do something for the climate. Definitely, and these big trade shows, I love them, but the environmental impact is
more important.
is tremendous. You can imagine Drupa, 11 days, 200,000 people taking the plane, 100,000 of tons shipped by boat, by train, by trucks, and sometimes by plane.
I can tell you in one of the comments on my article on LinkedIn today was actually one guy that was doing a calculation on what you just say about the carbon emissions. So I'm totally aligned with what you're saying. So, but I appreciate that you gave us a little bit of that one, but I think that we should talk about trends and challenges in packaging. Don't you think so?
Absolutely, I'm ready.
That was the leading question. So, we have already uploaded your presentation. So basically, when I click Start Presentation, I think that you should be able to take it away from Francois. And then afterwards, we have a Q&A, see if we have some good, interesting questions, okay?
Okay, so I present or you present for me? What do you prefer?
No, you just click on you can see that you have the menu where it says Slides.
Yep, where is it?
It's
Slides.
Yeah.
Slides.
You
Oh, yeah.
And then you click on your Start Presentation, and then
Start Presentation. Here we go. And
so I would just
where do I see the slide next?
Yeah.
And then I think Start. Yes. Here we go.
Yeah. So, that was the wrong one I was clicking on. Sorry, that was me. Hang on a second here.
Start presentation over here. Here we go.
Yes. And I will leave you, and then I will come back to you when you're finished. Thank you very much so far, Francois.
Okay. So, looking at the trends and challenges in packaging, and this is now becoming a very important topic for the obvious reason that all the brand owners, all of them, small to big, they want to do two things. If you summarize, they want to be more agile in launching products across all the distribution channels, and they want to reduce the environmental impact. In summary, that's what packaging is all about. So now if we look at packaging, the big challenge, it is that to make packaging, you have brand owners, retailers that are impacted by packaging, and these guys, they have pressure from newcomers. They are disrupted by digital technologies, new consumer engagement. They need to move faster. Then you have converters and packers. They are the ones really producing the goods. And what they see, it is packaging variations and complexity, faster time to market requirements, job size are reducing, and obviously you continue to have cost pressure. No one is willing to pay more for what he has today. And then, of course, you have companies like Bobst and companies like ESCO, as an example, in software. We are providing equipment to enable packaging production. And in addition to all of these, you have new governmental regulations, and you have also consumer putting pressure to understand better what is in the box, where was it made, security, and then in addition, we have the so-called plastic ban. People want to see a reduction in plastic consumption. So that's in short the big challenges that we are all facing. So now, if you look at brand owners, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but you have production drivers, you have marketing drivers, you have brand integrity drivers. So all the words you see on that slide are really the packaging, impacting packaging productions. You need to have an agile operation, you need to provide quality, you need to protect the goods, obviously, effectively, you need to ensure customization, personalization, versioning, you call it the way you want. You need to reduce cost as much as you can, you need to work with recyclable materials, you need to print only what you need to avoid waste, and so on and so on. So that's all the challenges. Now, if we look at the different technologies, and here this is a very simple presentation. So to produce packaging, you need to print, and then you need to cut, fold, and glue, and to make pouches in flexible packaging. So let's start with printing. So in printing, today, for packaging, the most used technologies is offset, that some call lithography. So offset lithography is the technology used the most, 64%. Then flexo printing is flexography is used, it's growing a little bit. Gravure is one of the oldest technologies, declining. And then unprinted, some of the boxes we have are not printed. And then digital is entering. Digital is growing very fast. It's still very small. And here I'm talking about the total amount of packages produced a year. So it's only 1%, but it's growing very fast. And if you're in digital printing, if you move from 1 to 2, you double your business. So that's very significant. But that's the technologies that are used today. So now if we go quickly to the technologies and where they fit. So here you see printing, it fits into what I call the packaging workflow. From the brand owners designing a new box, then the pre-press. This is where companies like ESCO are very active. Then the printing, then the embellishment, the cutting, the folding, gluing. Then comes the packers filling the box. Inline printing sometimes to put some security features or additional information. And then the distribution of the goods, storage of the goods, and then putting them on pallets and then shipping them either in e-commerce or on the shelf of retailers. So here we are first talking about printing. So printing, different technologies. So gravure, I told you, very old. Where do you find gravure? It's mainly for super high volume of goods. Chewing gums, cigarettes, so super high quality metallic effects, super high speed, very low cost, but don't change anything because it's going to be very costly to make a change of the printing cylinders. So that's for gravure. The most used technology, offset. So offset printing, cost effective. It's effective for all kind of volumes, very flexible, very easy. Dominating companies in printing, companies like Heidelberg, you will know them. And it is mainly used for paper and boards. It's not really used for flexible packaging and not really for labels. It's not designed for customization on short runs, but it works really well for printing. And then digital is going to make some inroads to replace offset over time. Then typical, and then flexo printing. So flexo printing, you will see it for labels, for flexible packaging, for folding, for some folding carton, and corrugated boards. So corrugated boards are done using flexo printing technology. Very effective for medium and long runs, high quality, very fast. You can produce like 12,000 boxes per hour on Bob's machines. So super high production for carton and corrugated boards. And the limitations, it's not really designed for short runs and prototyping, but this is a very good technology. And now coming to digital. So digital is making significant inroads, and you have two types of technologies, inkjet and the indigo electrophotography. This is the two big technologies. And this is fantastic for promotional packaging, prototyping, for label production, very fast time to market, cost effective. And you will see more players entering into that field. Today, the main challenge, it is that outside of labels, it is not really cost effective. It's pretty much designed for short runs, prototyping, limited editions, things like that. But over time, things will change. So we need to keep an eye on digital printing. If you look here, I put all the technologies on one page. So here, this is the job length, super high volume on the right. And then here, this is the cost on the left, very cheap at the bottom, more expensive on the top. And here you see a nice mapping of the technologies. Bottom right, gravure, as I told you, declining, very effective for the long runs, very cheap per copy, but not flexible at all. In the middle, the big piece of the cake is offset and central impression flexography for flexible packaging, folding carton, and corrugated boards. And then here, inline flexo, you will find it mainly for labels, and then digital. So that's in a short overview of the everything. Now comes, after printing, comes cutting and folding, gluing. And this is also very important, because if you print very fast and then it takes forever to cut, fold, and glue, you have not achieved much. So let's look at the different technologies. So first, I have the slides in the wrong order, excuse me. You have two types of technologies. You have what we call flatbed die cutting and rotary die cutting. So flatbed, it is for typically folding carton, and it could be done for corrugated boards. And then rotary die cutting will be for corrugated boards and for labels. So this is the two technologies we have. And now, what is how does it work? So on the flatbed, you need tooling. You need die cutters, so basically blades that are going to cut the sheets. Then you have some striping. It will be ejecting some elements that you don't need. And it will also help them to be folded, pre-folded, and then the blanking. So these elements are going to be used. And then in rotary die cutting, it is different. It is a cylinder where all the blades are mounted, and then the sheets will go between two big cylinders. One is going to cut, and the other one will put the pressure. So here we saw the two technologies, and once you connect the printing and the converting, this is what we call converting, this is basically the die cutting and the folding gluing, then you get your final box. The last element I want to share with you in that very high-level presentation of printing and converting, super high level, we talked at the beginning about the main challenge, it's packaging, consumption, and the sustainability challenges. So brand owners, they want to move to less plastic. They want to push the circular economy. They want to replace plastic, reduce plastic, reuse plastic, recycle plastic. And to do that, they need to find new materials with high barrier protection, because we still need plastic. We should not dream of a world without plastic. This is not going to be possible. But we can have less, and we can have recyclable materials. So things that will either in the, let's say in 5 to 10 years down the road, biodegradable, but it's not ready yet. And then in the meantime, we can have recyclable mono material substrate. And here there is a lot of innovations that Bobst is driving with other companies like Dow Chemicals and BASF and then others. So that's in a nutshell the big things, the big trends, what's going on. And then I forgot to mention in die cutting and rotary cutting that of course you have laser cutting coming into the game. But again, that technology is very new, still limited in terms of speed and performance. But in the future, you will also find digital laser cutting. Forgot to mention that. So the industry is at a very critical turning point where things are changing, and it will enable a more sustainable packaging production, where we will see more digital things happening, and the key pillars for the future are going to be connectivity, where all the machines will be connected one to the other. It will be the digitalization of the entire process, because everything starts with a PDF, and then it has to be worked on. Then it will be the automation of the machines, and then the sustainability that we just discussed. So that's pretty much all the trends and challenges that we have ahead of us. And this is going to be very interesting for all the ones involved in packaging. The next 5 years, we'll see a lot of changes in a very traditional industry that has done a good job over the last 100 years, and that is now going to change for a more sustainable packaging production. So that was my short update on packaging. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have questions, you can always find me.
I think it was a great presentation, and for me it was also, I must admit that I come from the commercial printing side, so I don't know so much about packaging as obviously you do. So appreciate your walkthrough of how you see things. I gave a presentation 2 days ago about IoT, Internet of Things, and I believe that when you talk about the machine connectivity, that yes, is of course IoT. Is IoT something that is already taking a lot of energy and mindset from Bob's perspective, or is it more something that you will do in the future?
No, so the Internet of Things, this is part of our strategy. You said it well. When we connect machines, we will connect them to get data from the machines. And then once we get data from the machines, it will help us on things like predictive maintenance, We can also help you to monitor your production better. So our strategy is now built on the connectivity, the digitization, the automation, and the sustainability. These are the 4 key pillars. And then Internet of Things is part of it, and it will accelerate in the next 5 years. We are now on a 5 years journey.
Okay. I can't remember who I spoke to, but I think it was actually one of your customers, because I was with a printing company in southern France 2 years ago. Right now I can't remember, but they had like 3-4 Bobst machines, and I was just wondering, because I think that it was a guy that I spoke to that said that the packaging industry generally is an extremely conservative industry.
Yes.
So would you think that, because I mean, obviously, if you can with IoT have plant maintenance, and you can monitor productions to help your converters to be more efficient and things like that, do you think that the change for Bobst and your converters into IoT will be faster than, for example, JDF?
So you're right that the packaging industry is conservative for a lot of reasons. When you make a new package, you have to test so many things. And then that process takes a long time. And the quality is pretty good. So today we purchase a lot of goods with a fantastic packaging around it. And that industry has been evolving over the last 100 years, and now it's working. But the problem is that it takes between 6 months to 18 months to create a new package. And that's a little bit complicated. So the converters, the one you met in the south of France or could be anywhere, they know that they have to be...
The name Otajon.
Otajon, yeah. Otajon is a very well-known player.
What was the name? And now I remember.
No, so Otajon is a leading converter, and they know that they have to move faster. So they are going to keep doing what they do, but they will automate as much as they can, and very, very important, they will build a workflow that is going to connect all the key stakeholders. Why does it take between 6 months to 18 months to make a package today? Because when you have an idea, you design your box, then you need to print it, then you need to finish it, and then it has sometimes to be done in different countries. And you need to make sure that the converters are using the same substrates, they are using the same finishing equipment, so that the 2 products looks the same. So if you buy a box in the UK from a given brand, it is the same box in Italy and the same box in Germany, even if it has been produced in different countries. And then the packers, if you make a change on your box, or if you make a specific box, the packers, they need to test the box in the filling chain. And then I will give you a simple example. Imagine you have an existing box in carton, and then you make a little change in the box. You make it a little bit smaller, and you make the carton a little bit thinner. But if the packers are not aware about that little change, then it will be a problem. And then the retailers, if they don't know either, when they are going to pile the box one on top of the other, if the carton is thinner, maybe the pile will fall down.
Yeah.
So a lot of information has to be exchanged, and all of these should be done digitally. Yeah. And today it is a lot of things. I send you a file, then I send you a box, you make the test, you call me back 2 weeks after, and then you tell me it does not work. I make a change, I send you back. It takes forever. So we are now going to enter the digitalization of packaging production. It doesn't mean that everything will be printed digitally or converted with digital laser cutter. That will happen as well. But what will happen first is the digitalization of the workflow. And then we will connect all the machines, and the machines will exchange information from one to the other. So if I change the size in my PDF, the machine will know that everything is a little bit smaller or bigger.
That makes sense. One of the things that I couldn't help thinking was that when you presented the different technologies, and you said like the 1% of the digital print, for example, I was wondering, the one thing is of course the growth in it, but would you say that the growth in digital, does it come from more customers requiring short runs, or does it come from more customers wanting to have mass customization?
So mass customization and short runs, it's a little bit the same. So when I said 1%, also I should add that 1% is total. If you look at the label industry, digital is 30%.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So digital has made major inroads in labels. It's 30% today, and it will grow. In 2025, I can bet it will be 50%. And why? Because of what you said. In labels, you have a lot of short runs.
Yeah.
And the machines have improved their productivity.
And the quality as well.
Quality is fantastic. What is still missing is the cost, but they are making progress.
Yeah.
And
but that also maybe changes a little bit, because I think that we covered a HiCon open house in Dallas at the Printing United, and one of the people that were presenting it was also saying that maybe also the printing industry has to move away from, you know, being focused on price per piece to what value creation you create for your customers, right?
Okay, so that one, I know it. I have used it many times. But the reality is that
cost come down to price all the time.
Yeah, so value for the customers, blah, blah, blah. In theory, it works. So when you ask someone, would you be willing to pay a little bit more for this and that? Some people say yes when you do the survey. But when they are shopping, they don't do it. So we need to keep in mind that except very rare occasions, price has a limit. So you cannot launch a new technology and assuming that consumers will pay for it. So the cost of a box today is what it is. And if you make millions of boxes, you cannot increase the price just by a little bit. Even if it is 1 cent more, if you multiply it by 1 million, it's a lot of money, and nobody is willing to pay.
Yeah, and that I think also answers, because in the chat, Andreas has asked that you have for a long time been talking about the digital printing is growing fast, but the digital print market share in total is still very low. So what's wrong? And I think, and you just answered it, because I mean, if it's just slightly more expensive, there's no reason to change.
Exactly. In fact, you have 3 things to summarize about why is digital printing not growing as fast as we thought. It has been very fast in labels, and it works in labels. For the
because
rest,
it makes sense. Because it makes sense, right?
Yeah, and not because you need to have quality multiply by productivity multiply by cost. And if the 3 are not good, it doesn't take off. So in labels, we have been able to produce, and Otagion is a very good example. Otagion is capable of producing high quality labels digitally, very fast, and at a reasonable price. In folding carton, corrugated board, and flexible packaging, it is not the case today. Today, digital printing in folding carton is very expensive. Same for corrugated, same for flexible packaging. And we have a good example. At Bobst, 4 years ago, we launched a digital corrugated press. It was called Geneva. And that product was fantastic in terms of quality, very high speed, but the cost per copy was still too high. The machine was too expensive. And we had to stop it. We had to cancel it.
Okay, so that was you had just to say that, okay, we had invested in this, but the output is very high quality, but it was too expensive, so that you had to make a business decision. I have a final question before we had to end this session, and it's just because you mentioned it yourself. Litho offset is still like 64-66% of the market when it comes to packaging. What is your opinion about the ratio between B1 machines and VLF formats when it comes to packaging, especially for folded carton?
Also, folding carton is primarily dominated by the B1 format.
Okay.
So large format is for other type of applications. It could be for pre-print in corrugated, but with B1 in folding carton, you cover quite a lot.
So from because I mean there's been a lot of questions about Heidelberg's strategy to stop using the VLF format as producing machine, and I maybe it's just because I didn't know enough. I thought actually that in packaging a lot of converters would like to have a larger format, but that is not for the folding carton boxes.
No.
You say that's more for like the liners and for those kind of things, basically.
Correct.
Okay, well. I really think this has been a great opportunity to hear you, Francois. So thank you very much for your time here on Learn With Us. And I know that you and I are most likely going to have a chance to meet next week again. And I look forward to have more time talking to you, more instead of being only about products, we can talk about market and environment and everything that comes to mind, right?
Okay. No, but thank you very much for inviting me. And I wish you an excellent day. And if people have questions, you know where to find me on LinkedIn and anywhere.
Sure. Thank you very much for your time, and talk to you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. It's 12:30, and we got some nice new gentlemen to welcome to learn with us. So it should be Scott and Harm. Are you there?
Good afternoon, Martin. Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Harmian.
Good afternoon. This is Scott.
This is Scott. That is like you're in the center of everything, right? So what about you, Harm? Are you also here?
Yeah, I'm here also. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you click on the webcam on the top next to the microphone,
now
then
you can see me, I think.
Oh, you are so nice looking, gentlemen. So so great to see you. Yeah. So how is life and where are you located right now?
Life is good. So far, so good. I am currently located, well, I live in Belgium, and as most of people nowadays, I think, working from home since quite some weeks now. So
have you started to feel this anxiety where you're I want to go out and I want to go and have a beer?
Yeah, I think it's the same for everyone, I guess. But to be honest, it's not too bad. I mean, I cannot complain. We have a big house. I have a big office here. We have a big garden. So even though we were not allowed to go on the street or go to shops or anything, I can still. I think it's more difficult for people who live in another situation or with a big family in a smaller house. So
yeah, sure. And what about you, Scott? Where are you located?
I'm in the United States, in the Boston area.
So you're up early today?
Yes.
Who are you?
Can you not see that, Morten?
Oh yeah, I can see that. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Did you see these? I think it was so funny because I saw all these on cartoons where you see that people dressed up from here, and then with ties and everything like that. Then they sit in their underpants just at the chair.
Yes, the shorts.
That might be the situation with.
I do have long pants on just in case, so that's
just in case.
I'm ready.
Okay. So before we see and hear your presentation, what is Tech Now and what do you do? I know it, but maybe somebody else doesn't know, right?
Tech Now is a provider of feeding and finishing solutions for high-speed digital printers, high-speed inkjet printers, most often these days. We've been around for 30 plus years now, so quite a lot of experience in the industry, partnerships with all the major printer vendors.
Mm-hmm. And how is if we see away from the COVID-19 situation, how is the market development for you as a company?
Harman, you want to talk about what's happening?
I can say. I mean, obviously, we were in that case lucky that we had quite a good order stock actually in the book. So we started the year already quite well. That helps a lot, obviously. But obviously, you see now the last couple of months, you see a slowdown. Decisions are being slightly delayed. On the other hand, to be fair, there was supposed to be a Drupa coming up in June, and typically previously to a big show like that, you see a little bit delayment of decision making anyhow. So
they want to be sure whether they should buy.
A little bit on that anyhow, and we were quite busy doing other things, and that hasn't stopped. And we were lucky enough that we are a very international organized company with factories in Italy, a factory in Sweden, and a factory in the US. So that helps also to spread the risk, specifically in these kind of situations. So that has been very good for us. And luckily enough, all the factories were able to stay open, and we've obviously taken all the precautions necessary.
Sure.
But we were able to work and to get machines out and definitely get spare parts out when needed. So from that perspective, things have gone on relatively well, considering the circumstances.
And Scott, maybe you can answer this one. I think that especially in America, where you have a lot of the inkjet devices are transactional printing devices, that was an essential business or essential industry in the US. So you have not, from your customers, have not been so affected by the coronavirus as maybe the commercial printers, right?
Yeah, no, certainly. The transactional business is continuing as usual. We are still getting business. Our business is down certainly, but still holding on and getting regular transactional business. Certainly, the commercial print side seems to be more affected. Absolutely.
I don't know if you heard the presentation before, but that was Francois Martin from Bobst, and I was just a little bit surprised because yesterday you just mentioned Drupa and Bobst and Xerox. They have just announced yesterday that they are not going to Drupa. That is a quite big news, I would say.
It is, and I was a bit surprised, to be honest. I mean, we certainly don't have the plans to stay out. So for us, Drupa is still very much there. And we're
okay, you have more space now. More space now, right? You can take.
Well, hopefully we get more space and maybe at a slightly lower price. Who knows?
I think that you should call Drupa and say that you take both Xerox and boxed space, and for a low budget, because then it will be even more exciting to go and see all the equipment there, right?
But then we need to fit it up with a lot of equipment also. So.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure we can. I mean, we have an extremely wide portfolio, and that's, I think, part of Scott's presentation also today, to show some of the different solutions that are out there for finishing around digital print, and it's quite a lot of different things. So I hope we were able to cover all of that today.
Oh yeah, I think so. I had a conversation with your new CEO, is Filippo? Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, over the Skype here, and that was great, because also that we got a chance to talk a little bit about some of the new progress you do on the new equipment. So that is pretty good. But I suggest that we take it away now, and then afterwards, hopefully some questions, and otherwise, I'm sure I can figure out something to ask you. So your presentation has already been uploaded. So if you look at to your right, it must be there's this slides button. If you click on that one.
I'm not sure I see it.
I can start here. It's just maybe you close the different dots, and then there's like a menu to the left side of the right side of the screen. You see that? Can you see the little red box with the 3 dots?
I see a slides icon, and
yeah, you click on that one, and then you can see that the last of the presentations is your presentation. So if you click Start Presentation on that one, you have the presentation online, and you can just talk over it.
Got it.
Good. See, saved by the Americans again, John.
Yeah.
So that is, I will leave the presentation to you and listen to what you're saying, and then I will get back to you when you're finished. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our session to talk about finishing. Hope this is an informative time for you, and we certainly welcome questions as we go along. I believe that they'll be chatted to us, and we'll certainly cover them as we wind up the presentation. What I'm going to be talking about today, my name is Scott Peterson. I'm Product Marketing Manager here at TechNow, and I'm joined by Harmjan Huleman, who heads up sales for us in Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa. And I wanted to take you through profiles of some TechNow customers. I promise not to make this all TechNow equipment, minuscule details. What I'm hoping to do is to give you an overview of what some TechNow customers are doing, just to give you some familiarity with the kind of capabilities that are available in the finishing world now, in finishing for high-speed inkjet printers. So let's start walking through it. I'm going to start with, and some of the customers, by the way, are going to be mentioned by name here, as this first one is. Some of them we do not have the liberty to share their name, but I'll still share some of the details of what they're doing. Runbeck is a customer of ours here in the United States. They are a ballot printer, commercial printer, but very much focused on ballot applications, and some of the unique features, some of the unique requirements of ballot applications are reflected in the description that we have here. So first of all, they're required to do some quite long lengths, so right up to a 30-inch or 750 millimeter plus length for some longer ballots. There are 145 and 200 GSM basis weight, so there's some a little bit heavier than usual paper, though not the heaviest out there, certainly. And they have a scoring requirement. I'm going to be talking as we go on. They have a dynamic perforator with scoring, and we're going to be talking about that in a little more focused detail later on in the presentation. But suffice it to say that there are those capabilities out there to do a scoring right along with a scoring increasing right along with the dynamic perforating. And these guys also have, I'm mostly not focusing on Technow products here, but just to quickly mention, they have our Revolution 50, which is our newest high-speed product. So this goes up to the 500 foot per minute speed of the HP PageWide T240. Also allows running of the heavier paper, et cetera. And we'll talk a little bit more detail about kind of the latest generation of cut stack that's out there in the marketplace available for you. And then finally, I'll focus on this slide about the last bullet there, splicing unwinder. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of these kind of capabilities in the marketplace, because they especially become valuable in a kind of environment like Runbeck has, where they're doing heavier papers, as they say, the 145 and 200 GSM paper. And you can see in the little chart at the bottom why it makes such sense for them to have a splicing unwinder. As run times, for instance, in the 200 GSM paper, the run time for a 50-inch diameter roll is not much more than a half an hour. And if you maybe take 10 to 15 minutes to change a roll, as is frankly pretty typical. Again, we're not talking about just how long it physically takes the operator to do this, but how long the press is down typically for a roll change. So you can see quickly, if you're only running for half an hour or so, and you take that 10 to 15 minutes to change a roll, the productivity benefit by going to a splicing unwinder where you eliminate that downtime for a roll change is major. So let's move on to the next customer here. These guys are another Revolution 50 customer, that this time on Blue Crest IntelliJet, the Blue Crest's version of the HP press. They again looking for that higher speed operation up to 150 meters per minute. Now these guys do a simple transactional applications, pretty typical 75 to 90 GSM, letter size, slit merged. Nothing very exciting there, but the interesting piece there again is they're operating with that newest generation of higher speed inkjet presses that are out there now. And that's where Revolution 50 and our competition has come out with similar products where folks are looking to be able to accommodate those higher speeds. Now, the speeds we were talking about for the last two customers was again in that 150 meters per minute range. But there are presses, of course, out there that are operating up to 180 meters per minute, and some even more than that. So this generation of finishing is really required to operate at those higher speeds. But it goes beyond that. There's also the media flexibility mentioned here to be able to run the wide media range. These are not just used for transactional print anymore. These are being used in commercial print environments, et cetera, where the media range demanded is quite wide. And as you can see, as light as 40 GSM up to 300 GSM, coated papers as well as uncoated papers. So those kind of requirements for the environment. And you also see things like we're going beyond that to offer a high reliability, Internet of Things compatibility to be able to do things like get remote access and acquire onboard diagnostics. Again, all about keeping the equipment up and running. Finally, one more Revolution 50 customer here. This is a US book printer with international operations as well, who really focuses on these very short run and even single copy books. And they're looking for something a little bit different because they're looking to form these books, and they require jogging and gluing so that they can not glue. Of course, as you maybe do a lot of perfect binding, you got a final book glue, but what we're talking about here is a glue that allows them to transport the book onto an offline finishing device. So they're looking to jog the book together. They're looking to add those tack glue dots, as you can see in the drawing in the lower left, where the book is held together, not with final sort of binding glue, but just glue to keep the book together during transportation, as I say, to that offline device. This is a plow fold environment that these guys are using here, where they're doing that fold across along the web. and allows them to do multi-up books, take full advantage of the web width possible, but still be highly productive. Another customer to mention here, now starting to focus on a little different area. Pallet is a Swedish direct marketer, does a lot of work for supermarket chains, variable data mailings, newspaper inserts, and these guys operate in a little different way. They operate roll to roll, in this case on a Ricoh Pro VC 60,000. So they operate roll to roll with a dynamic perforator as well to form coupons. You can see on some of the samples there the coupons that these guys might typically do. And then so they operate roll to roll on the press and then have an offline cut stack system. In this case, their offline cut stack features a long stacker capable of handling sheet lengths up to 700 millimeters plus, so able to handle some quite large inserts, etc. And so that kind of thing is possible as well. I mentioned with Runbeck earlier, again, the same sort of long stacker. In Runbeck's case, up to 30 inches plus, so the lengths can be quite long as well with some of these stackers. Typical stackers might be limited to shorter lengths, but there are options for these longer lengths. And in this offline environment, the offline cut stack sort of gives rise to a question that we frequently receive from our customers, which is whether to go inline or offline with finishing. There are certainly, of course, obvious advantages to operating inline, minimizing labor, keeping jobs together, improving that job integrity. There's obvious benefits to operating inline, but inline doesn't make sense for everybody. For many customers, that offline finishing might make the most sense, as it did for Pallet, with roll-to-roll operation on the press, making the press most productive. The roll-to-roll is sort of, roll-to-roll doesn't go down. It keeps your press up and running, keeps that expensive investment in your new high-speed inkjet press operating as efficiently as possible. As soon as paper is broken into sheets, it automatically becomes less reliable, more challenging to handle. You also maximize in an offline environment the productivity of each module. There are speed mismatches. Our line might run at 150 meters per minute, but maybe there's some finishing binding equipment that doesn't run at the same speed. So it can make sense to break apart a line so that each individual module can run at its greatest speed, and you minimize your investment in equipment, because if you have to buy up equipment to meet the speed of the least productive piece of the line, that can really lead to increased investment that you might otherwise be able to avoid. Certainly also, of course, with long lines, you might need to break them apart to isolate those equipment down situations. If a piece of a line goes down, if a piece of a line goes down, all of a sudden the whole line is down. And whereas if you break it apart with offline finishing, you can keep your press up and running if the finishing is offline, or if the press goes down, you can keep the finishing going with maybe some pre-produced work that's already queued up waiting for that line. So, and basically, in summary, a long production line, as it says here, is only as productive as the slowest and least reliable piece of the line. That's really.
Scott, if I may add something to that.
Yeah, please do, Harmjan.
Very, very fair point what you say there on the bottom. Obviously, there's not one size fits all answer. Every customer situation is different here. It's a very interesting question, though, and like you said, the question we often get from customers. And the other thing is also there's not one answer. That what we see quite often is that we finally go for what we call a hybrid solution, in which the customer can actually choose depending on the application, depending on the speed he wants to run, or depending on the timeline pressure that they might have on a certain job, that they either go roll to roll or they have the finishing as well online as offline. So they have both options available. And depending on the job, they can choose to go either roll to roll and finish offline, or specific other jobs, more time critical jobs maybe, they want to go straight into the finishing and finish offline. So once printed, they immediately have their output available. So right. I think that flexibility sometimes at least answers a part of these questions.
That's a very good point, Harmja. Yes, there are very flexible configurations available that can support both environments at the same time. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, engage your finishing partner, engage your press partner as well, and both will have some views on what might make the most sense for your operation and whether one of these flexible alternatives might be the best solution, et cetera. All right, so moving on. So let's take a look again at some other customers. This one is a Dutch commercial printer, kind of interesting customer. They've been obviously a very tight good Ricoh account with being beta site for some of Ricoh's newest presses, the VC 60,000, and then the first European beta for the Pro VC 70,000 as well. They are a commercial printer. They do they still have an offset capability as well. They'll transition some of their traditional offset to a digital environment, producing B2 sheets for some of their legacy finishing equipment that they still have on hand and still make use of, calendars and posters. So they do a lot of larger format stuff. And they've got a little bit different approach to the large stacker than our previous customers have. They use a pallet stacker. So pallet stackers are available in the marketplace as well to produce an efficient, very tall stack. You can see in the photo on the slide there, a very large stack that again can move to some of that legacy finishing equipment that is maybe accustomed to operating in that kind of environment. A little bit different type of customer here. This one is a direct marketer in the United States, doing in this case the application in question. It can be more traditional direct mail, but also transactional statements. A lot of their work is focused in the more traditional basis weight range, if that's 70 to 90 GSM. But why I particularly wanted to mention them here is to highlight another capability that's available in the finishing world, which is quality monitoring systems. So these guys make use of a quality monitor to look at a number of quality measures. You can see here in the graphic a number of the tests that are available, and this is not at all a complete list, by the way, of the kind of tests that are available. And maybe one thing to focus on here is these quality monitors don't just look at maybe traditional print quality. What kind of quality is there a color match? Other quality measures of print, but also measuring data integrity and measuring things like is a number sequence appropriate? Is the first page of a bill going to the same customer that the last page of the bill is supposed to go to? So we can, those kind of sort of other measures of quality are available as well. So that's something that, and it's something that can be very valuable for print for pay customers who want to provide evidence to their customers that they are delivering output as appropriate to the right customers at the right time. Another customer, Liturgical Publications, kind of a very interesting company that produces church bulletins. But the pertinent piece here is they handle the kind of applications like booklets that are stitched and folded. They'll also put in perforated coupons there with a perforator. These guys, again, every customer is different. These guys, in this case, do operate roll to roll on the press. And then they have offline finishing where they'll bring those rolls over, unwind them into a cutter, and then the cutter might feed a folder with a perforator included with it, or might feed into an IBIS smart binder or similar kind of binding devices to produce a final document. So those kind of capabilities are available as well, where maybe multiple, finishing equipment from multiple vendors is tied together. Certainly, we're all used to those kind of environments and accomplishing those kind of things. Talked about a number of customers using perforators and scoring devices, etc. So I wanted to highlight here a little bit of what's available in dynamic processors. So you can see some typical sorts of applications here of some different perforation patterns that are available, and these are just meant to be not at all a comprehensive picture, but just to represent that any kind of perforation pattern on a page might be possible. And the advantages of going with a processor are listed here in the first couple of bullets of reducing an inventory of pre-perforated forms. Perforations can be therefore done inline, avoiding the use of expensive pre-perforated paper, which can operate at quite a premium of 30% premium or more over standard unfinished papers. You can, and then the whole world again of applications is possible: remit perforations, coupon perforations, etc. This is typically done via 2D data matrix on the page that drives. There's other possibilities as well, where we might focus on a feature of the page or feature other kinds of barcodes, etc. But typically the 2D data matrix is used, and oftentimes if 2D is present on the page to drive inserters, oftentimes that same 2D can be used, so we're not adding necessarily an additional mark on the page to drive the perforator as well. Those perforators, again, can do a lot of other things too, other than standard perforations in each direction. Pin feed punching can be available for those still operating with pin feed, with inserters that require pin feeds potentially. So those pin feeds can be added, and avoiding that pre-conversion process, it's more expensive. Dynamic file hole punch can be added, a 4-hole punch on each page. Scoring increasing options, as I mentioned earlier, are possible. And this final bullet I want to highlight, most of what we've been talking about so far has been for the web-fed world, for web-fed inkjet presses. But there are solutions out there for sheet-fed inkjet presses as well. So here, the dynamic processors are available for both web-fed and sheet-fed devices. There are cut stack lines also available for the sheet-fed inkjet world, where you might take a large sheet like an A3 sheet or potentially even with a newer product that we're coming out with, a B2 or a B2 plus sheet, and break that up into final page sizes right down to a postcard size. So those kind of things are available these days as well, and might be something you might want to be aware of. Talking again about a couple of in the sheet-fed world, what might be possible. Here you can see a customer that we have in France that is producing school reports on a Xerox Brenva, and now of course replaced by Baltoro, and the same product is available certainly for Baltoro as well. And I should mention it's available also for the Canon I series, or the new Canon VarioPrint IX series, where you can add this kind of dynamic perforator, dynamic punch, dynamic scoring right in line with these sheet-fed inkjet presses. And you can see that the customer is quite happy with what they've been able to achieve with the solution. Finally, I think this is my last slide here, outlining customers. This is I wanted to highlight this one a little bit and make sure you're aware of this, because I think a lot of customers, a lot of folks in the marketplace are not aware of this kind of possibility, where you can buy roll feed for your sheet-fed system. So sheet-fed, all kinds of sheet-fed presses out there have this possibility to add a roll feed, where you go unwinding a large roll of paper, just as for a continuous inkjet press, unwinding that roll of paper into a cutter, which cuts it into individual sheets and then feeds that into the inkjet press. Why would you do that? Well, the reason why you do that most powerfully is because if you're doing the kind of things like this D&L press is doing here, where they weren't running commodity sheets. If you're running an A4 sheet through your press all day, the advantages to going to a system like this can be more challenging. But if you're doing sheets that are non-standard in any way, either because they have some kind of finishing element, or they're a non-standard size, a non-standard paperweight, something that the whole world is not running through their copiers, you can save quite significant sums on the cost of the paper. So these guys, with their unusual size sheets, where they're taking a larger sheet, having trim on there so they can break it into final size book pages, they were paying quite a big premium to get those kind of sheets prepared, by a converter for their press. So by doing the conversion themselves, taking those large rolls and breaking them into sheets themselves, you get the kind of comment that the president makes here, that no way would they ever go back to loading drawers again. They use this basically with the number of sheets you can get on a roll. You allow your inkjet or monochrome printer to operate for a full shift, 8 hours plus, before they might need to change that roll. And I sometimes talk about basically making a 50,000 sheet tray for your cut sheet printer. So TechNow is a brief overview of TechNow here as we're kind of winding up the presentation. TechNow offers, as you can see, a whole line of automated paper handling equipment, cutters and stackers, band folders, rewinders, perforators, quality monitoring systems, splicing devices, etc. And we have a around the world capability here. You can see we've got over 8,000, it's probably well over 8,000 systems. We're probably getting up to 9,000 systems that we've installed on high-speed digital presses worldwide over the past 30 plus years. We've got manufacturing and engineering capability in 3 different locations. Helps us with unique capabilities in each location that are working together to provide new innovations for the marketplace. So exciting possibilities here from us, and hope that today you've been able to see some of the possibilities that might be available to you. If you want to follow up further on some of these TechNow capabilities, you can certainly check out our website to learn who might be your right contact for some of these, to have further discussions and learn about some of these capabilities. You can see certainly our website has a distributor page and the sales network page that might help you. Harmjan Hulaman, who's been with me this morning, is your best contact in Europe and Africa, and then in other parts of the world. You can see some of the other contacts here. So I think that's pretty much the presentation. Harmjan, I don't know if you had any closing comments as well.
No, thank you very much. I think it was very interesting to get, let's say, the customer perspective. And I think what we've seen here is that every customer does things slightly different. And that's also what makes the finishing world, I think, quite challenging and interesting to work with. So, no, very good. If I'm wondering if there's any questions, maybe Morten from your side, or
always.
I knew it.
I think it was a fantastic presentation, and as I said to my friends, and also to my wife is also my friend, but I said to her, the reason why I get so tired when I get home from these events is because you get so much information about things, some of the things you know, and some of the things you know just scratching the surface. The last time I met TechNow in where I could touch and feel the products, that was actually at the ThinkSmart factory in Kyoto, and that was like, every time I see, I mean, your equipment looks so nice, and the output is stunning as well. So congratulate you on that, and congratulate you on your history. I think that is awesome. One of the things I am a bit curious about is we did an over the Skype with Heiko van Gaal from Canon Europe a couple of weeks ago, and he's actually going to present a presentation about inkjet tomorrow. And I was just wondering, because it seems that inkjet started more in the transactional business, and then it has moved into promotional, and it started to be colorful, and now we even have higher substrates, and we have higher quality, and all the machine vendors of the printers, they talk about moving into replacing maybe even offset machines in commercial print. And packaging is obviously also an important part of that. How do you see tech now in that relation?
Well, I can say you're probably right that it started in the transactional environment. Basically, also, if you look at many of the players today, especially also from the printer vendors, they were companies that already had a large installed base in the transactional environment, and inkjet just fitted very well. But I think from the beginning, we've seen that there was a huge opportunity also in the offset environment, and specifically looking at some examples here is the book or the publishing market. And I would say from the beginning, inkjet has also been very, very successful in that book environment. And we have quite a few customers around the world that are printing books on a daily basis with these high-speed inkjet devices. So if you look at where we see our future, definitely there's still a lot of potential there where offset can actually convert into digital. And from that perspective, we're only today doing a small bit compared to what's worldwide printed in offset. So I think there's a lot to do. And seeing the inkjet printing technology being developed as it has over the last couple of years, in combination with, let's say, all the finishing possibilities that there are now today, I think that world is opening up for us now quickly. So from that perspective, we're quite positive and quite optimistic for the coming few years.
I
hope you agree, Scott.
Yeah, our press partners are making life very interesting for us as their presses get more and more capable of producing these kind of graphic arts applications. Life gets more and more challenging for us finishing companies to be able to operate at the kind of ranges of applications, the kind of ranges of papers that these guys are producing these days.
Poor you guys, right?
Yeah.
Well, we always like a good challenge, though. But.
Absolutely.
But one of the reasons I was asking is because, I mean, obviously, I also heard that from Canon when I was visiting them in Boca Raton last year, is that I think it's a natural development that if you have inkjet devices, roll-based inkjet devices with transaction, with transprom or whatever, then it's like a natural development that when you invest in the newest equipment and you get like more capabilities and better quality, that you also move into other segments of the market. But I was also thinking a little bit about, let's say that you're a commercial printing company using traditional offset machines, and now you have started to look into this one. I think that a major challenge for some commercial printers who are not used to work with roll-based finishing is that should they choose a sheet cut sheet printer in inkjet, or should they use a roll-based and get into like whole new binding things and all these kind of things? And of course, I understand that you have like devices that can make the rolls into sheets, and you can use legacy equipment. But how would it affect you if, let's say, that the majority of the commercial printers chooses cut sheet inkjet devices? How are you ready to serve that market?
Well, as Scott said in the beginning, a lot of our solutions today are focused around roll fed. And this is also a little bit, let's say, where we come from, where our heritage is.
Yes.
However, the last couple of years, we've developed quite a few systems now also for the cut sheet environment. And particularly also, and you mentioned Heiko van Gaal, for sure he's going to speak about the iX300 platform.
I guess we can't avoid that, right?
No, exactly. Well, together with them, we have developed an interesting range of finishing solution, either online to that device or in an nearline situation. Coming back also to the discussion we had previously on online or offline. We offer both possibilities here. So we do see a growth in that segment. And let's say from a customer perspective, I can imagine if you're coming from a sheet offset environment, if that's your first step into digital, a cut sheet inkjet device makes a lot of sense for them. because it doesn't change everything immediately.
Yeah.
And what you typically then see, once those customers grow or the applications or the volumes grow, a next natural step could be then going into roll-fed inkjet devices. So we luckily have solutions for both of them.
Okay. When Scott, when you also in your presentation talked about the inline versus offline finishing, I couldn't help think of that. That also extends to what we're talking about now, because I think that some of the commercial printers, they may choose a sheet fed based printer just because the changing paper to different substrates, different grammage and things like that is way faster in sheets than on roll. And but that is I think that when you have that when you have the entire value chain from both cut sheet to roll base, I think that you don't really care about that, because you have also the cutter that can make the sheets into the sheet based. So you have basically offerings for the entire range of printing companies, whether it's commercial or transactional, right?
Yeah, certainly. No, we've actually got along. So Harmion is certainly right. I mean, our business is certainly focused more over the years on the continuous roll-fed side, but we have a long heritage of providing solutions for sheet-fed printers. I mean, for those of you, Morten, you might be a little young for this, but for those of your listeners,
52. Come on.
those of your listeners who kind of were around in the industry, 35, years ago, we have products that ran with the Xerox Docutech, the Xerox 9790. Some of these really old, long-established sheet-fed inkjet printers that were been out there. We had roll feed products for those, so it's certainly a long heritage of our business.
Scott, this can become a very long conversation, because when I started in the printing industry, I used to work with the Docutechs, and I am actually 52 years old, so 30 years ago I was still working in print. So, but
you look young, Morten. You look good.
I'm so fat that my skin goes like this, so it's no worries. No, guys, good times ends faster than you sometimes anticipate. I really enjoyed your presentations. I hope you enjoyed being part of the show. We will of course send you some statistics afterwards, because I think it's been a very good show, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate that you got up so early, Scott. Thank you very much, and Harmion, it was great to meet you too. I hope to see you soon in real life. That would be awesome.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Morten, for setting up and giving us the platform. And you're doing a good job communicating to the market in these difficult times. So, it was a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, talk to you soon. Okay. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I actually hoped that that the last session was kind of ending on time, because then I could have my lunch. So if I'm a little bit grumpy now, you know why, right? No, I'm not grumpy. I am just a little bit grumpy because I am waiting for Douglas Gibson from Infigo Software. He is my next guest, and I look so much forward to talking to him, because I think that today, of course, my presentation this morning was just fantastic. No, just kidding. But I think that what we have seen from both Bob's and from Tech Now is really something that also shows how technology is developing and how things are moving ahead. Regardless of how you sometimes think the markets are developing, it's apparent that we sometimes see that technology is bringing new opportunities to the market. So that is, I think, it's just awesome. So I think it could be great to wrap it up with Web2Print today. While we are waiting for Douglas, I can just tell you a little bit about tomorrow's program. Tomorrow we only have 3 lessons. We have at 11, we start with Sandra Hendricks and Heiko van Gaal from Canon Europe. I haven't seen the presentation, so I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but I have asked them to talk more in general about inkjet, because there's so many. Why choose roll-based? Why choose cut sheet? Why there's so many different print heads? What is inkjet? What kind of obstacles should you see? And of course, they need to talk about the technology as well, because Canon is a very prominent supplier of inkjet devices. So of course they have to do that as well. So that is tomorrow at 11. Then we have, I think I look very much forward to that, 11:45. We have Tim Webster from HP coming and talking about, I started saying workflow automation, but they actually asked if we could change it to workflow and production automation. From and over the Skype I did with Tim's boss, Chris Knighton, a couple of weeks ago, I got an understanding that they have taken, I wouldn't say automation to another level, but I would say that they have developed it further in the sense where they have said that, okay, if you are a brand owner and you need to deliver your print job in different places, now you have, like, in the HP Print OS ecosystem and also other systems, the capabilities of actually delivering jobs, so it becomes easier for your customers to get jobs turned around faster. I think that's great. And then the last session tomorrow is 12:30 Central European Time, and that is one that I actually also particularly look forward to, because that is actually the first session we have in this week with an actual printer, or I was just about to say printer, because I made an agreement with Ali Jason Basuband, who is he's working with the Print24 United Print, and they are one of the major online printers in Europe. They are, as far as I remember, the 5th largest online printer in Europe. And they have a business model that is a bit different from the other online printers. You know, the flyer alarms, the online printers, they are printing companies. They have their own production facility. And I've been at online printers. It's fantastic. So many printing machines, so much binding equipment that it's like heaven for seeing these great production facilities, basically. And then you have like Hello Print that is like a broker, more or less. And the reason I mention them is because they are owned by the same private equity firm as online printers, so they are related, but they don't necessarily produce with each other or produce with the online printers. And then you have Print24 or United Printers, and the interesting part of their business is that they are kind of broker and not really, because the way they operate is basically that they invest, as far as I've been told, in equipment and put it up with the best printers across Europe, so they have like a split share in equity. And that is a pretty neat model, because it must build a tight relation, because you have both parts have the let me take this one for a second. Both parties have their hands on the boilerplate. That means that both have an interest in making sure that it works. And yeah, so now Douglas is on board, I can see. So that is great. So Douglas, so much welcome to learn with us. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. And you had a late lunch, and that's why you're a bit delayed, or?
Yeah, it was just a bit of lunch. 1 second. No, I actually, you were typical. My internet died. Literally died.
Okay, that's so nice when you are an online printing company that the internet died, right?
Yeah.
How unfair is it?
Oh, I know. It drives me nuts, but
yeah.
We'll
so you're obviously from the UK. Where in the UK are you located?
So I'm the office is just outside London. So we're a place. Gatwick is probably the
place you know.
Yeah, the place we know, a place people know.
Yeah. Okay. So I would have thought that everything in the UK was like Shire or something like that. So it's like Gatwick Shire or London Shire.
Yeah, West Sussex. Yeah, you can Gatwick Shire is fine. You
okay.
Can,
or maybe we should invent like the Infikeshire. That's where.
Yeah, I'm more than happy. Hopefully they'll be put the sub in the town hall.
Okay, that's great.
In Gatwick Shire.
Okay, but see, it was not a completely disaster that you were a little bit late, because that gave me the opportunity to introduce the program for tomorrow as well. So, nothing bad without any good as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the beauty of life.
Yeah. First of all, a very warm welcome to learn with us. I look very much forward to. Yeah, I think that you and I, we met each other at some print show in America a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it would have been print 15, 17, 18, 19, or one of those like ones.
Yeah. And at that time, I didn't have so much self-confidence, and we were the very small film. And I remember, because I said to you, I want to talk to you, and you're like, yeah, who the hell are you? And now we're here.
I'm sure it was probably the other way around.
Yeah.
Who are these Figo guys?
Yeah. Who the hell are you guys?
Yeah.
No, sorry. Before we go to talk about your presentation that you have prepared, I would like to know a little bit about how, because the UK is a little bit more affected still from the COVID-19 than compared to at least Denmark and Germany, I think. So how is the situation in the UK right now?
Yeah, so I guess what we are finding, March, April were obviously the toughest months, and the ones where we made the decision to do different, like change the business slightly. But definitely end of April, beginning of May, things are starting to really hit back. And
oh, really?
I guess that's in two ways. A lot of our business, although we're a UK-based company, comes externally from outside of the UK and Europe. So
you're not so affected business-wise, or?
It's yeah, definitely. People were 100%. Yeah, I think we see a sharp decline in March, and then April and May is picked up. In fact, May in the last we're probably 30-40% up on last year in May already. So we're seeing some really positive things, which I'm excited about. It's hard in these things to everybody to sit here and go, do we push? You don't want to be appearing arrogant and say, look, the world's okay, so everybody should be buying our software. So that there is a bit of sentiment that you've got to understand that people are, although they want to look at things, that they are in troubled times, and they are in times of unknown. So you've got to push forward, because that's our nature as human beings, but you have to be sensitive that people are going through some challenging times. So rational thinking isn't always at the top of their agenda. And a business, we've looked both internally as how we manage our business, how we manage our employees, how we're helping our customers, and I think we've taken a look at across the board in different ways. But I'm an optimist. So we're going to come out of this fighting as we always do. We turned 10 on April the 22nd, which was the weirdest celebration.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was the flattest day of my life in a way.
Oh yeah. Now you spent 10 years of your life, and then you're
10 years, and here we are. Oh my God! What are we doing? But I then went up to my home office down in the garden. And I went up and my wife poured me a glass of champagne. She wished me well and said, great job. And I think we need to spend some time through these crazy times to reflect on all the good things we've done in our businesses and what we've achieved. I think that's really important. Not just to think ahead, but actually, God, look what we've got, look what we've built, look how many customers we've helped, to look at the value we've driven, and never let go of that. And I think in these times, we're too quick to forget some of those really important achievements as businesses, as well as where do we want to go next. Because in business world, as you know, Morten, people want you to turn over more money. They want you to make more profits. The banks want you to borrow more money. Your investors want you to have more revenue, more customers. And sometimes it's as important, I believe, and I'm learning, and some of this is learning as we go, it's important to be really thankful of what you've got, what you've built, and to always keep that in mind. The customers you've got, how can you invest in them? How can you drive them forward, as well as trying to keep an eye on a prize on new customers? And we definitely had a bit of time reflecting that over the last few weeks.
I really appreciate what you're saying, because I think that is definitely, as you said, there's like the natural thing of being a human being is we want to sell. The natural way of being a human being is also that we respect people's problems when they have problems like we're right now. But what I think about the reflection that you say now is also a very important part of not just the business, but also from a people's perspective, that we have that time to look inside from time to time, right? So
as business leaders, and that's one thing that this time is really sort of given me time to reflect a little bit, is that actually I need to spend a little bit more time reviewing the good stuff, both, and it could be a release that doesn't go horribly wrong, or it could be a customer installation that goes quicker, or it doesn't have to be something monumental, but just spend a little bit more time, and both my family and my friends and stuff like that, as we have done, as everybody's done over the last 9, 10, 12 weeks, is actually I've communicated more with my family and friends more than I have done over the last 40 years, which is madness. So I think we've got to definitely spend time. And one of my commitments coming through this and onto the next Infigo 10 years is that we will work harder to deliver more value to our existing customers and spend as much money in our existing customers as we will on the new customers that we bring on, because they're the ones that have kept us solid as we've been in these very, very strange times. So that would definitely be a mantra and some values that we've built into what we're doing.
And that is a very good promise to give, and I think very respectful. So I appreciate that. And now, Douglas, you can't avoid it anymore. You have to do your presentation. So basically, I don't know if you tried it, because there's a little button to your right.
Yeah, got my slides. Yeah.
And when you are on, then I will turn off the microphone and camera. But I I will be there, so I will ask questions afterwards. Okay.
Yeah. How long do you want me to run for? Because I can talk forever, as you can see.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we were a little bit delayed, but is it like 15-20 minutes from now?
That'll be. I'll time myself, because I have a habit. I get very passionate, as you can probably see. So
I love passionate people. So I wish that we could convince everybody to stay online for the all day.
Let me know if you can. Hopefully, see okay. Excellent. So thanks very much to today, guys. Thanks for coming along. And for those that didn't make it and you're now watching online, thank you very much also. So I thought long and hard when I was speaking to Morten about what we need to talk about. And I thought this was a very poignant idea, and talking about a presentation that one of my guys, Greg Young, head of customer success, put together. And what I want to talk about is successful web print, because I spent a lot of time talking about web to print, the features, the functionality, but unless it's successful, then why the hell are we doing it? Why are we even investing the time in our business? Why are we pushing it to our employees? Why are we pushing it to our customers? So today I would like to talk about a few of the key points and ask you to think about some tasks that you can take away from this, and either review if you've invested in web to print, if you're homegrown, you've got a system that you're using internally, or you're looking to take on a new partner. This isn't a selling exercise. It really is talking about some of our experience on delivering some of the real successes of a successful web to print business and what that looks like. And Greg did a fantastic job of putting this together for a couple of other people that were spoken to. So so what we want to know is getting to know you guys, what you're about, and really I've got a mix of people that here that have either invested in web to print, will have to web to print, and so on. Getting to know me, why should you listen, and where does it go wrong? How do we fix it if it goes wrong? And some guides and things like that on effective fixing the things and moving them forward. And then I'm sure Morten will have a few questions. So one of the things is, how would you describe your business, and how would you describe a process that if you were to describe yourself to a customer, and a hashtag that best describes what you know about sort of web to print and the associated things. And Inkish software is not just about web to print. It's not just about delivering a software. It really is a partnership with our clients, and it's driving value. If I don't add value to my customers, current and new, I've got no interest in wasting their time, taking their money, and pushing that forward. And how would I describe myself? Well, hashtag B2B expert, hashtag web to print expert. And I know a lot of people in the industry use that term very loosely, but over the last 20 plus years, I really have gained an in-depth knowledge on how to help our customers improve their businesses, both from taking an order from the very start of the process to making sure that that's automated all the way through their company. So a little bit about Inkish, what we are for those that don't know us. So we supply high-end enterprise-wide e-commerce products, e-commerce web to print for various businesses, UK, Europe, and into the US. And you'll see some great brands from around the UK, Prime Group in the UK, F.E. Burnham in London, Elanders in Newcastle, Bishopstown and Portsmouth. Obviously the big beast that is Paragon across the UK and Europe, ILS in the US, and Arizona in the US. We've got a good breadth, and one of the exciting things about the clients who we deal with is there's no particular sector. We're almost sector agnostic. The product is about fit within their business and how we add value. And some other businesses as well. Abercrombie, big household name, British Gas, personalized luggage, top trumps. And there's some really unusual applications that over the next couple of months, we've got some nice content I'll be working on and sharing out of how we're delivering some more unusual products and services to these guys. But at the heart of what we do as well is partnerships. There's no point in a business taking on a successful web to print campaign if we don't have a good partnership. And what I mean for that, and something I'm very passionate about, is making sure that you start from the moment that you consume a job, from the way it goes out and delivers, is fully finished, delivered to your customer, that there is a partnership, an integration, an automation where it makes sense, because some automations don't make sense. So Inkish take their partnerships very, very important. So where does it go wrong? Well, we're seeing time and time again. So number one, and I cannot bang on about this enough, is lack of strategy. I was speaking to a customer in Ireland only about a month ago, and they was very focused on cost of our product. And I was sort of interested in talking about, well, if you take our product, our cost is probably the one of the smaller parts of the piece of the jug of the puzzle. You have to think about how you're going to market it, how are you going to promote it, who's going to be a champion within the business, what happens if things go wrong. So I think strategy is number one of that point of view. So, and part of that strategy is really about the resource that will not just take your system and be able to add products or make it look really fancy, but have you got the resource? And that resource comes down to people. Do they have the skills? Do you have the budget to be able to support, if you're going to be launching a B2C project, do you have the budget to be able to promote a thorough marketing campaign that lasts 6 to 12 to 18 months from that point of view? And as part of your strategy and resource planning, make sure that you understand what good looks like over a 3, 6, 12, 18-month, 2-year basis. If you're going to invest 50, 100, 300,000 pounds, how are you going to get that back on the return on that investment? And our biggest one that we hear as well is really lack of adoption. So you've got the great system, it looks brilliant, but why is nobody using it? Why are there no customers? So you have to make sure that your plan is agile, that your plan is consistently reviewed, and that you're making adjustments as you grow within your journey of that process. So that requires ownership. So who is owning the numbers? Are you driving numbers? Are you driving users? Are you driving orders of the system? If you look at a percentage of your total ownership of revenue, stroke profitability within the business, how much profit, how much revenue do you want to drive through your online sales? Do you want to drive through your web to print system? Who is going to own that for the business? Who are you going to take from the senior management down to the day-to-day tasks, down to making sure that person is in charge of reviewing it, making sure it's fantastic, and being pushed in to the system. So also, we hear about, we get brought in, normally we're not the first person that somebody's spoken to, or the customer, speaking to a customer in North America the other day, and have invested $200,000 to date on a system that doesn't have the right functionality. So it's making sure that you've researched your products, you've researched, and that you start to link your strategy, your plan, your success with the functionality, the features that you need to go live. And build in a contingency for the project. What happens if time slips? Time will always move. We get asked by our customers when we're, oh, can you give us a project plan? Happily do that. 3 to 6 months, 9 months, depending on the complexity and involvement of the project. But they don't plan for people being off, maybe running out of budget, or as we've had in the last 3 to 6 months, a major pandemic. How does that affect either negatively or positively the contingency that you put within the project? So what we really want to talk about and making sure is that is 4 sort of key areas on here. So you want to research as you push, implement, adopt, and improve. And that the last one really is really important to me. Making sure that you're constantly reviewing. I would say minimum as a project goes live on a monthly basis. but I would also, on a quarterly basis, look at things on the metrics that you're looking to do. So research the project properly, implement throughout the business so that people understand what it is you're trying to achieve, the vision, and then obviously make sure that that is then adopted, and then there's continuous improvement for that. So when you're researching, really everybody, like buying anything, you go and buy a car, oh, a second-hand car, I didn't realize it had a scratch down the side. Oh, I didn't realize it had a chip in the tire. We all buy with very happy ideas and things, and we try to buy in a dream, and we all get a little bit sidetracked about that. So do you know what you want your software to deliver? Do you have specific goals? Do you have a plan? Going back to your strategy about what you want to do and making sure that your strategy is met by your software provider and the different parties that are involved within that. And the reality is people get sidetracked, they get pushed to get things done. The bosses want things done quickly. They don't push in a due diligence, and some of the research goes out of the business. But you really have to make sure that the product's a right fit. Can you work with the people that you're working with? Case studies. We hear time and time again that people promise the world and deliver very little. So making sure that if what you require from the web to print solution, your vendor actually understands that, they've had some feedback, you can speak to their customers that are using it, and so on. And as you go to research, everybody over here, oh, well, I can just build that. It's only a web page. But the reality is, it's not just the build cost, it's the maintenance, it's the upgrades, speed of delivery, and so on and so forth. And you'll never build cheaper than we can supply products, and your vendors, other web to print vendors, can supply. So a question to ask yourself: do you do the right research? What research did you actually buy? And this doesn't really just focus on web to print. This could be any software product, MIS, workflow. What research are you doing? And also, if the project's not going quite okay, don't always look at the vendors. Have a look internally. Are we matched up? Have you asked the right questions? And so on and so forth. Implementation, absolute at the heart. The dream, everybody logs in, they understand the software, they know what they need to deliver it, they've been given clear metrics by the management team, and they're off to the races. They're off and running, they know what they need to do, but what happens, they're not given a clear brief by the management team, there's not enough information, they're running a pre-press, they might be running the design room, or they might be doing other jobs. So they're not given enough time. They have to be given time to effectively implement it. And we understand when we're working with people that not everybody can afford to give a full-time person, but they have to have the right time designated, planned out to deliver this information, and make sure the system, if you don't implement it correct, and you don't have a strategy, you're really starting from a point where it's just going to be a disaster. So incorrect skill sets. So often what we see is the system is purchased by somebody else, and then somebody else is being asked to deliver the solution, and all of a sudden there's a requirements miss. And nobody knows how to implement it, the skills are missing, and then nobody wants to solve it. So making sure that you're buying people in, they've got the right skill set. Integrations and automation, as I've said a few times, is really important that you've got a great system that's fully implemented and built in from that point of view. Important as well. So once you've got it implemented, how are products going to be used? How are you going to report on them? And what is the information, the weights, the shipping, the couriers, making sure that it's end-to-end, because when you're implementing these systems, you're going to touch different areas of your business and potentially your customers, so that you have all the information. And we hear this a lot. People really get hung up on delivering the dream. I want to deliver this most amazing system. I want to please my customer. I want to please my boss. And they get what we configuration paralysis. The perfect is never possible. Minimum viable product. Make sure you can get something out there. You test, you iterate, you review, and you build from it. And that's really important, because the panacea does not exist. And a task to take away, to look at these sorts of systems when you're thinking about it, is, as I say to customers, build a workflow. If you could visualize your order going from your customer, what information does your customer need? How do they put it into the system? How does it get updated in our system? How does it get pushed through to shipping? What information is being fed back to our client? And think about that. Take a task, look at your process before you're doing this, look at the key areas. How many times is a job touched? Where could I improve that? Where could I reduce that? Because, as I said earlier on, sometimes it just makes sense for people to be able to manually administer some of the tasks. Adoption. We often hear people say, well, we tried this, we tried that, but nobody wants to use it. They just prefer ringing us and emailing. Absolutely wrong. Nobody prefers making a phone call or an email in this world. People are time poor. They've got to move quickly. So what we want to do and what we see is people take the new tool, they understand that they really use it and the volume is. But actually what we find is it takes longer for people to adopt the systems, or the orders flooding in and the workflow can't handle the automation. So really adoption, both from your client, adoption from internally in the business, is really so important. So make sure that there's internal adoption. Creating the right user guides and videos. Do you have all the information for your customers? If it's more complex, then the customers need to be able to know. Are the users incentivized? Why should they use the system? Well, if I just ring Jack, he'll send my order. What is the benefit to it? Outline the benefit that they can order 24/7, that they can be sitting at home, they can have a burger and chips, and all of a sudden they can order some print online, or they can get the packaging or those labels or the next thing, that the next event that they want to do. And as we said before, run reviews, run training sessions, get your product champions out there, internally, externally, talk about the benefits, why it's helpful, and push that through the business. And one of the thing, and it's a really great one, is how many storefronts would you want to have in the business? How many are active? So if you've got a system and you're only using it for 2 customers, and that's definitely something we hear a lot. Why is it only using for a customer? Is you believe in the benefit of its driving. So think about the things that are holding you back, and the functionality that would actually, if you're adopting web to print, you think it's going to drive your business forward, and we know it does in many situations. Why are you not getting all your customers using the systems? So improve. You're already offering everything the client wants. They're really happy and they need nothing more from you. Well, we all know that's never going to happen. Customers will always, quite rightly, want more. They want to be more involved and they want more information going on. So the reality is, you've asked the client, you think they've met half of the products, and you've got some users that stop using it. So you have to constantly improve, work through, and making sure that you're meeting the needs, exceeding those needs from that point of view. So more time. You always need time to test, improve, and work through. Get feedback. Workflow automation. If you haven't implemented, or there's certain parts that you want it to improve, maybe it's going for information from your web to print your account system, or from your MIS to your account system, and always make sure that you're building a budget for the future on how you want to be able to improve you need to make sure that when you're looking at your year ahead is actually what money, what information have I put in to be able to improve for the future. So have a look at things about how much resource are you applying at the moment, how often are you engaging with your client, how often are you engaging with your internal staff, who's owning that. Actually put those metrics down, and if people would like, I'll speak to the Morton and guys. We'll make sure we've got some nice checklists for being able to verify some of this and some nice information to be able to push this out to your end users that we talk about on some of the other webinars. But absolutely make sure that you're planning and pushing that forward. And this is the old Big X, Xerox. Web to Print is a culture change, not a technologies change. And that's a culture change within your business. That's a culture change on how you think. And it's a culture change of how you interact with your customers. And all of that, you have to believe in the benefit and the process that is going to deliver to your business in terms of that being able to be successful and really drive it home from a business. So hopefully that gives you some thought and some ideas and some thought-provoking ways on how to improve a solution within your business. Right, Mortar, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Just because my wireless headset ran out of battery, so I thought I could just plug this in, but I couldn't. No, I just say that you are an awesome presenter, and you are a great inspiration to listen to. So thank you very much, Douglas.
Thank you. I love doing this. I absolutely love doing it.
Yeah, and I guess you have it the same way as me. It's more fun when you're standing in front of a crowd, right?
Yeah. My wife says I'm a crowd pleaser. You can read into that whatever you want.
It's funny because I remember when you went to school, it was like when you were to an exam, and it was like right, like this kind of thing, right? And now it's more like whenever you you know, I get like a kick especially when I've done if I did a presentation like yours in front of, let's say, 15, 20, 30 people, and they would just be like, whoa, that would be the best kick for me. I must be.
Absolutely. If you give me the choice of balance sheets, filling out paperwork, and doing a presentation, I guarantee the presenting stuff will. Who knew that one of the 4 exams I took at college would have helped me, and that was theatre studies. Maths, physics, all of that sort of stuff is being kicked to one side.
Yeah, well, one of the questions I always think of when I listen to presentations of Web to Print, I think that you were, one thing that you actually made me curious about, because you, as we also spoke about, you didn't talk about your product, you talked about the processes of deciding for a vendor, right? Mm-hmm. And even for the process of deciding that Web to Print is maybe something for your business. And I think that was great because I got curious about seeing your system. So maybe we will have an opportunity to dig into that at a later stage.
Love to. I've given you the excitement. Next time we'll show you
precisely.
Crown jewels.
And I think that leads me to the question, because I was thinking that a lot of, if you go to a trade show and you see, if I see a Scodex machine, I want a Scodex, right?
Yeah.
If I see a new Indigo machine, I want an Indigo machine. If I see a nice piece of software, I want the software. But that doesn't really bring me back to the fact that you said that what you should do is basically having your business plan aligned with what you want to do and how you invest in things. But I think that a lot of printing companies, and correct me if you don't agree with me, but I think a lot of companies have been, till the internet came, it was just like growing business. Then the internet came, and it came, mass out together with the financial crisis. And then all the Web to Print solution came, and all the evil online printers came and took away my business. And I was just wondering, don't you think that's a lot of printing companies still not really sure what direction to move?
God, do you know, it's something that I'm really, as well as I've got a couple of things that interest me in life, and one of them is really, I hate wasting, and I also like to plan of where I'm going, and anybody you'll ask internally within the business, I'm part of a couple of CEO clubs, I'm part of software things where I do some both learn and some advice, and I think we need to think about what I call strategic intent. What is the strategic intent of our business? And that business being, I'm now a printer. I want to take on what I'm buying another big piece of tin, Heidelberg, Xerox, HP, or I'm buying some finishing equipment. Why am I doing that rather than, and you're absolutely right. We're all hit by things that, God, I've got to react. I've got to have a new piece of shiny thing that, and I was speaking to a couple of the guys that, Paul from Rapidity in the UK, and we had a discussion. It was about capacity. I want to order, and let's buy it because we can, but there is enough capacity. So why not test the service, build it in, use some of the capacity, get relationships. But I think you're spot on. We need to spend more time on the longer term plan of, if I'm going to buy a bit of kit, I'm going to buy a piece of software. What do I want to achieve, and what is the success? Because you always go back and say, oh, well, it isn't fast enough, it isn't shiny enough, I'm bored of it, does bossing and glittering or flittering, or if you're in your card world. What is the strategic intent that's going to move your business forward? What is the value I can associate that? Who are the people that are going to make that happen for me, and how am I going to review and improve that constantly? And I think as business owners, the CEOs, the MDs, the VPs of sales and business development have to make sure that they're clear on those metrics and those goals to deliver any solution, hardware, software, and whatever. And I think a lot of that is lacking. And I think you've seen over the last few years with some of these things like the bigger players online and things like that, they really have got their game plan together of what they want to achieve out of it. And I think that's some of the differences. We're not spending enough time putting that in place within the business.
Well, I have got a question from Miriam Halibachikova. Yeah, she also asked some questions out there. I have to call her and ask her how to pronounce her surname. But Miriam, dear Douglas, trend in printed product is to add embellishment. Is there any way how to show embellishment products to consumers online over web to print before they order, or to allow them to add varnish and view online how the product gonna look like? That was a very concrete question, right?
Yeah. So I've got two answers to that, and I'll be brief. The first one, I learned a very interesting thing on e-commerce there, that not related to our product, Web to Print, but just in e-commerce in general, that's showing a 3D view that somebody is more likely to remember the purchase and talk about it and share it. So some people always ask me, oh, well, your 3D visualization tool is, oh, look at it, it's pretty, but it's not going to do anything. And literally, this was about a week ago, and I'm going to spend more time on this stat, is that actually it improves it. So yes, we have a 3D visualization tool, as do other vendors. Ours is very good.
Do you think she knew in advance when she asked you, or
possibly? Who knows? And also we have the ability to show things like foiling, embossing, debossing, shiny tools, and things like that. And I'm more than happy if we'd like to. If she'd like to have a view of that or a demo, we'd love to do that. And I'm happy to put out some materials and a few things after this, Morten. And I'm sure this is not going to be, this is the start of our journey on this, I'm sure.
I hope so. That could be great. So that was like, no, I didn't know, she writes. Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. We have to be, yeah. But thank you for asking the question. It was actually a very good one. I always remember, was it Da Vinci it was called, from Brett Brett from Scissorhands that made a software where you can also visualize varnishes like that, and foils. I can't remember, but I think it makes a lot of sense because, as Miriam points out, a lot of people do want to have embellishment, and if you don't have the print samples and you can see that, how does it affect your print? I think it's a great opportunity to do that. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important thing for some of the future stuff that we're finding, and you'll find a few of the players at the moment, like Moo, are looking at it, adding foil. We've got these, and you talked about it earlier on, we've got a Scodex, we've bought this Scodex. Well, how can I take that and get it all the way to the customer? Because if I can't get in front of a customer, if I can't get them to understand the value of it for their customers and their products, then it's useless. It's just another bit of tin that's going to sit in the workshop. So having those visualization tools within your web to print is absolutely really important part of the process.
And it's it's kind of funny because I gave a session this morning about selling, and my colleague Henrik, he asked me about how to argue for value, and that reminds me a little bit, because I don't know if anybody here has seen it, but we made quite nice films for Scodex with a German printing company, Ninodruck, and Schätzl Print and Emotion. And that was actually because they invested in 2 Scodex machines, one each, right? And then it was like, how to show the foils, how to show the visualization of it. And Ulrich Schätzl, he said to me that we have made so much money from the film because we could visualize the impression of it. So obviously, if you can have a web-to-print software where you can visualize this without having a camera crew on site, unfortunately, I wish I could be like everywhere all the time, just filming things that came out of it. But that makes a lot of sense that you have that built in, because if that generates not just more value, but also more profit to the printing companies, that justifies the investment into whatever software you have.
100%.
And that also relates a little bit to one of the things you said in your presentation, that it doesn't. I mean, if you don't have the resources for not just the financial resources, but also the business logic and the investment in marketing and all these things, maybe your business should start somewhere else before you even think about this, right?
Yeah, no. And the reality is, we've been involved in many but large, small projects, and we're very honest now. We don't want to sell to everybody, and that isn't being arrogant or rude. We want to sell to people that understand the process and see value in what we can bring. If people want a $99 service and a $300 a month, we're the wrong person. We do, and to be honest, what I'd like to say to that is, don't waste your time, because you've got to. It's a bit like going hiring half-hearted. Do you want to go? A good salesperson will cost you $3,000 a month at least. They're going to want some commission and things like that. Are you going to hire a salesperson that can't sell anything? And we all do it.
But to be honest, and sorry to interrupt you about this, it's just because I think that what I can't help think of sometimes is that yesterday we spoke to VPrint, as you may have seen as well, VPress, sorry, right? And I can't help think about that when we have different price tags on software. It's also, it's also from a cultural perspective the price levels on salaries in the UK are obviously higher than in India, for example, right? So if let's say that you have a gross margin of X% and the same company in India have the same gross margin on their business, but they have a lower starting point. So I'm just saying that the price point doesn't necessarily say anything about the quality when it comes to software, does it?
I disagree.
Yeah, I didn't say it was my opinion. I was just asking because I'm
no. I don't mean. I think in any walks of life, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And
damn it, I was pretty hungry now, so that was like fucking hell.
Well, my wife's just coming in off and she got some spaghetti cooked the other day. She's going to warm it up. But I think 100% you're right. There are some really good products, but it's not like I split our businesses up into thirds. You don't buy Catfish, our product. You buy a third of what we deliver is product. A third of what we deliver is our knowledge and our skills of being able to do that. And a third of what we do is the people that are involved in that process. And I think that's as I say to customers, and I'm having a conversation now with a company in North America, and they're saying to me, Doug, we love your product and we love your ideas, but you're too expensive. And I'm like, well, what does that truly mean, and what that says to me? And I completely understand that people have budgets and things like that, and that has to, like we buy thing on budgets. But we got HubSpot. It's the most expensive blooming software product ever bought, but the value it brings my business outweighs any, well, not any cost, but the cost that it actually comes in a month. And I think we need to spend more time thinking about, as I said before, the strategic intent. Do I want to buy a good value bit of software? And if that software, let's call it $200, $500 and $1,000, and it ticks all the boxes, and the people have the knowledge and thing, then you are, and I take my comment back, you are right. That there is that, but there is sometimes the reason of spending 2 to 5 or 5 to 1,000. And I think we just got to make sure that we've invested that in that research and that time, and it links back to our goals. Because if I'm a small or a large business and I want to launch a business doing t-shirts, let's just say, and I don't really care if I get 5 t-shirts or 1,000 t-shirts orders a month or a year, I just want to pay $200 because I want a presence, then I'm never going to invest $1,000. But I'd almost say, why are you doing that? What's the time and investment in that? If I want to be the next XYZ spreadshirt or whatever it is, the big t-shirt business, I want to have a quality user interface, I want people to, then I'm going to invest more in that time. And I think that's what gets forgotten all about, because the person who administered the system.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that turns a little bit back to some of the things that I always blame this industry, and that is that we are selling our services to people that use our services, not your services, but like print to promote.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we are not even able to promote our own thing, because you didn't mention, as far as I remember in your presentation, one word that when you buy Infico, then you have like 1/3 is the software, 1/3 is the people, and 1/3 is whatever, right? So I think that, again, it comes down to how do we communicate what is it you actually buy. And that is an interesting question, because if you are able to deliver that message to your prospects and to people who are looking into web to print, I mean, that is obviously something that people say that, well, we don't find Douglas worth 1/3. Okay, that is different, right? Because then you don't discuss the feature set. You discuss whether you bring enough value, or you can convince people that you bring enough value, right?
Yeah, no,
does it make sense, or?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, like, it goes back to I think one of my first sales, and I was with the Xerox concessionaire or whatever they were called back in the day, franchise. And the guy said to me, I remember this guy, very, very wealthy guy at the time, and we were selling them a document management system, and it was £100,000 or something. That's 20 odd years ago. And he said to me, he said, but this CD costs 50 pence to duplicate or something. And it was a time where you actually were installing it on the servers and stuff. And I sat there and I just said to him, I said, we're all wasting our time. If you can't see, if you're looking at the value of what we're bringing of 100 grand to 50 grand, we're all just wasting our time. And I think we all need to give the respect to our vendors, both on both sides of the party, that we can see the value they're bringing way beyond the price, because that's what. Because the printers all talk about, well, I just get beaten up on price and I'm beaten on the price, but in turn, that's just happening back to their vendors. So I think it's being able to attribute the value of services and the offering that we're all bringing, but from us to the printers to their customers to the end consumer as such, and really understand what the value is. Because if we understand the value and we believe in that value, then the price has got to be sensible, is less emotive. And that's a difficult one. It is a difficult one. And it will always be contentious.
Of course. Douglas, it's been a pleasure having you here on Learn With Us. Sometimes I don't know if people enjoy these conversations, but I really personally enjoy having the time to sit down one-on-one and talk. One thing is the presentations, but this conversation kind of thing I really like, because we get to touch upon things that might be important to other people as well. So for me, this has been an extremely pleasant, cozy presentation and chat with you.
Definitely.
I hope to see you in real in real person at some point. Now we have at least done our first work together here on Learn With Us. So I appreciate your support and appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Well done for doing a great job of bringing this sort of stuff together, because it's not easy. And we'll always have a
little bit more time than anticipated. I can say that.
Brilliant. No, you've done a fantastic job, you and the team. So well done.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Morten.
Cheers. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah, too.
Good luck. Bye-bye.